I moved into a smaller house with a roommate after graduating from college and starting my first adult job. I went to high school with the girl who shared the room, and we were in the same grade. But we weren't really close pals. Despite not having the same buddy groups, we were both aware of one another. Although we ended up residing in the same city after graduation, I didn't know anything about her. We had been buddies on Facebook or something, and we tried to make friends and move in together because we both lived there and didn't know anyone else. I assumed that because we were both girls of the same age, it would work out, but I was mistaken. She seemed chill at first. Although her hours were very regular, I honestly forgot where she worked. We had the only 2 bedrooms in the house, and they were right next to each other in the corridor. Although we weren't exactly best friends, at first we got along well. However, she appeared to be acting a little strangely. I recall that I was always observing her go and return at the most peculiar hours. I used to sleep for only a few hours each night, usually from midnight until 5 in the morning. This happened so often, at least a few times a week, that I had no idea where she was going or why. I questioned her once why she was going at 2 in the morning. She stated that I must have heard the neighbor and categorically denied it. I realized that whatever it was, she didn't want me to know, so I didn't tell her I knew it was her. For the most part, I didn't give it much thought, but one evening after moving there for a few months, I stayed out late. I returned home at what was presumably close to midnight, accompanied by a few other companions. When I went into the house after returning, it had no lights on. In addition to seeing that my roommate's door was open and that she did not appear to be inside, I turned on some lights. I asked her if she was home when I called her name. I assumed she had vanished once more. I walked into my bedroom, changed, and went to bed when she didn't respond. Despite my fatigue, I found it difficult to fall asleep after closing my eyes. I tried to rest for approximately 20 minutes while I lay there, but I didn't feel as exhausted as before. I was startled to hear this noise coming from inside my chamber. I was clueless about its nature. I noticed my closet door opening when I looked up. Then I noticed my roommate approaching. Even though it was incredibly dark in there, I could definitely identify her. This was really peculiar. What she was doing in there, I had no idea. Asking her what was going on, I sat up. She turned to look at me as soon as I finished speaking. She then bolted from my room and began to run. I stayed put because I couldn't figure anything out. I then heard her coming out the front door of the house. Approximately a minute later, I made the decision to leave there as soon as feasible at that point. Over the next few days, I prepared my belongings. My roommate was never there while I was, so I'm not sure where she was at this time. She must have returned solely during my work hours. After that, I moved out. I never spoke to her again after that. I'm still not sure why she was hiding in my room's closet when she blocked me on social media. It's unlikely that she anticipated my return home at that point. She was in my room and her door was open for that reason. She must have had to hide in my closet, trying to get out of the room only when she believed I was asleep. But I'm pleased I couldn't sleep and that I saw her. I've never had a creepier roommate encounter than that one. Do you feel that tingling? That's the fear running through your veins. If you love the thrill and don't want to miss any of our scary stories, hit the subscribe button. My hometown is a quiet, little town. I live a semi-solitary life in the country. It was only a few months ago that I will tell you this story. I once fell asleep one night and woke up at 2 in the morning. I recall hearing my phone vibrate on the nightstand next to me when I woke up. I attempted to ignore it and go back to sleep, but the caller kept coming back. I think it was the 3rd or 4th call before I fully woke up. I had been half awake up until then, simply wanting to go back to sleep. It had not really dawned on me how unusual it was to get a call at this hour from someone I didn't know. Looking at the phone, all I could see on the screen was unknown number. This was also a little strange. I took the call since I believe I can now detect who called me and genuinely wanted me to answer. I greeted her, but first there was no response. The sound of labored, deliberate breathing then reached my ears, and that was all. I inquired several times who was calling, but I got nothing but the sounds of breathing. Surely this was a prank. What other way could I put this? That was, I thought, quite much the case. Who, after all, picks up the phone at 2 in the morning and ends up breathing? They were presumably playing a practical joke on me by finding someone to pretend not to make their number show. I hung up on them after saying something along the lines of "very funny." I returned to sleep after that. For the remainder of the night, they didn't really call, and I got up for work at my regular time the following morning. I got up and walked into the kitchen at around 7 in the morning. In a way, my kitchen is in the front of the home. I then noticed something on my front glass at that point. I thought it was strange that there was a post-it note stuck to the window. The previous evening, it had not been present. It had a clear view of me, and it must have been placed there recently by someone. I snatched it up from the window as I was walking outside. On the sticky note, there was handwritten text that read, "Call me back." Reading it sent shivers down my spine. I made the connection between that and the call I had received at 2 in the morning. This was quite strange. I now live a little further out in the countryside than I did a few years ago. I don't only live in a metropolis with plenty of houses. The dwellings are separated by a great distance. When I'm in my driveway, I can hardly even make out the house of my neighbor. My driveway is rather lengthy as well. It was quite odd for someone to be on my property since there are numerous no trespassing signs posted there. That day, I simply told the cops about it when I went to them. Although I didn't feel particularly in danger, I thought it would be interesting to let them know about the incident. These kinds of events are rare in this sleepy community. Although it's possible that someone in the area was pulling a practical joke on me, I've never been the victim of one quite like that. It was difficult for me to think of somebody who would harm me in that way. It's still a mystery today, and I haven't had any odd phone calls since. I acquired a new phone a few years ago, complete with a new number. When I did, I gave my closest pal a call. I was pretty sure I knew her phone number off by heart. Almost the first thing I did with my new phone was give her a call. I said, "Hey," as soon as I heard her pick up the phone. However, there was a man on the other end. The voice was unrecognizable to me as well. When I inquired if this was my friend's number, the respondent denied it. I informed them that I probably had the wrong number after realizing that. However, the man remarked something along the lines of, "Do you know who's calling?" I merely apologized once more before hanging up. I realized that the number I had dialed was incorrect when I turned to look at it again. All the other numbers were correct. I had just messed up one. I then contacted my friend, but while I was on the phone with her, I received a call from a different number. The first person who had called by mistake was making a follow-up call. I ignored it and spent roughly 10 minutes conversing with my friend. During the call, the man made 2 more attempts to call. Later that day, he made at least 5 more attempts to contact me. I disregarded each and every one of them, but he would not give up. After a while, I decided to answer his phone. Acting as though he hadn't been blowing up my phone day and night, the man on the other end spoke. He asked me how I was doing and what was going on in a casual manner. When I questioned him about why he continued phoning, he brushed it off. After that, I lost it and hung up on him. After that, I blocked his phone. I wouldn't have to be concerned about the guy getting in touch with me again. That is, I believed. I received an SMS from a fresh number only the day after. "Why did you block me?" it said. I knew who it was, but I still asked. It was, of course, the person who kept phoning me. It's likely that he simply created an account on a free texting and calling app or anything similar. Although he contacted me back to confirm what I already knew, I banned this number right away. But this didn't deter him. This guy, whomever he was, had a lot of resolve. Later that day, I started getting calls from a different number. The fact that the guy was still attempting to get in touch with me shocked me. He refused to give up. I asked him to quit bothering me by texting this number. However, he didn't. A new number would display each time I blocked the old one. He wouldn't leave me alone and would phone me roughly 10 times a day. This continued for over a full week. At that point, I made the decision to simply get a new phone number. After giving me his number just a week or so ago, this guy would not go away. I was at last left alone when I managed to switch numbers once more. Actually, it's likely that he continued to text and phone my old number. I feel bad for anyone else who may have understood it. Hopefully the guy left them alone after realizing it wasn't me. Still, I'm amazed at the lengths he went to in order to get in touch with me. I'm relieved that it didn't worsen. If you want to see more horror stories, check out my next video.